All right, Viva Lifers, and our guests, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm Dr. Kelly OMZ, your board certified OBGYN and healthcare executive, here to help you live your healthiest and wealthiest life. The way that we do that is through meditation, journaling, exercise, optimizing our nutrition and our sleep while we eat the Viva Life 5 foods: fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains, and beans, and drink our water. Do all of that more than 95% of the time, and I guarantee you will have a positive impact on your mind, body, soul, and spirit. But tonight is not about Dr. Kelly OMZ. It is about our special guest, who is an amazing coach. She is the coach of coaches, and she is going to help us with our health and wellness. So, Carla, tell us 3 things you want us to take away, and then we will circle back. Go ahead, tell us a little about yourself and what you want us to learn tonight.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be with the Viva Lifers. So tonight, yes, we are going to talk about longevity and pleasure and purpose as a triad to living a fulfilling life in midlife and beyond. And I put that under an umbrella called wholeness. We want to be whole. We want to be able to touch all of these areas of our life and cultivate them and foster them and grow them so that we are living a long life of longevity, filled with joy and pleasure, and doing the things that bring us that joy and pleasure, that bring us a sense of meaning and purpose. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, especially at this stage of life that I think most of you might be in, which is midlife and slightly beyond.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here. We heard you on another one of our friends, Dr. Larissa. So we say she is a Viva Lifer as well. But we heard you on her show, and we're like, we have got to have you here because you just dropped so many golden nuggets, and we were not able to catch them all. So we needed to bring you here so you could drop jewels in Viva Life as well. And go ahead and drop jewels on us. We are ready, we are listening, and we are here and present.
Thank you so much. Well, let's touch on longevity. Because longevity, a lot of longevity has to do with years, of course. Longevity is not merely the years, though. It's the quality of those years. So in this phase of life, if we haven't been focusing on our health and how to extend our lifespan and our health span, we definitely want to do that now. And that sounds like it requires all of the things that you do as a Viva Lifer, all of those things that I just heard Dr. Kelly O mention that you're doing. All of those things work to extend your life so that you can live a quality life. The other part of the triad, I call it like the Holy Triad or the Holy Trinity, which is pleasure, the joy of living. Now that we're going to live a long time because we're doing all the things that are outlined for you in Viva Life with your exercise and your diet and nutrition, and you're also doing regular visits with your doctor and you're monitoring your biomarkers and you're being mindful, intentional, and purposeful about that and your longevity. Now it's time to be thinking about pleasure. This time of life has so many obstacles to pleasure because there's so many things that are changing in when we turn 40, 45, and we start to enter those perimenopause years and go into menopause and even post menopause, that sometimes it can feel like it's all consuming. You're just trying to work through getting some sleep. You're just trying to work through the hot flashes, the night sweats, the irritability that is happening because your hormones are fluctuating and even declining to menopause, right? And so while you work through those things with Dr. Kelly O, and I'm going to hopefully sprinkle some gems around where to focus lifestyle wise to help you along in that area, I also want you to think about what other areas of your life are also impacted in addition to the menopause, perimenopause, hormonal changes. What about your relationships? What about if you're in a relationship? What's changed there? We're going to talk about sex and intimacy tonight. I'm just letting you know, because if anything, if it wasn't impacted before you reach this phase of life, and by the way, men experience changes too that can impact sexual function as well. But this is the part that we ignore, or we don't like to talk about, or we don't understand what we can do to kind of improve the situation, a lot of which you're doing when you're focusing on your longevity. But I want to highlight other things you can do at this stage in your life. You may not be able to do and be the person you were before you reached this time, but you have the opportunity to learn new things, to have a new way of looking at intimacy and the way to look at pleasure and vulnerability and intimacy with yourself as well as with your partner, because not everyone's partnered. That doesn't mean you can't experience sexual pleasure. Touch on that a little bit. Whether you're with a partner or not, you do not have to live a life void of intimacy, self-intimacy, or with a partner. Okay, so we're going to touch on that. That's just one aspect of pleasure, though. When we get bogged down by the midlife thing, sometimes we miss all the other areas where we could be deriving joy and pleasure in the things we like to do or the things we want to discover. We need to pick those things up, because when we do, it has psychological and emotional benefits for us that in turn help all of those other symptoms, right? So we want to be able to pick up the things that used to bring us joy, maybe when we were children, maybe before kids, maybe before it all. That used to bring you joy, bring those back if you're still interested in those things, or discover new things. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. And that kind of goes into purpose too. Pleasure and purpose are very much connected, because you're likely doing things when you're seeking pleasure and joy that also align with who you are, things that are important to you, how you want to walk through life moving forward. That's all about that quest for meaning. So we're going to talk about that too. I want to pause in case, Dr. Kelly, you want to interject or if there's any questions. Otherwise, I'll just keep on going.
Well, you saw where I was clapping my hands, so.
Yeah, those physical changes.
I know. Well, go ahead and get into it because I'm excited.
Yeah, okay. So what is happening? I asked that question myself when I reached about 45 and I started gaining weight without changing anything in my diet. I started getting moody and seemed to be more emotional. I stopped sleeping. Forget about disruptive sleep. How about insomnia? I just didn't sleep. And I couldn't understand why. And I was also at that time working in a very high level corporate job in a technology company in Silicon Valley, managing millions of dollars for these companies that I had to be on, and I had to look fabulous when I was doing it, but I certainly didn't feel fabulous. What was going on? Well, that was the reason why I left that company, left that industry, and decided to become a health coach, because I really wanted to understand what is going on with me. Why am I, what is going on? Because unfortunately, it's wonderful to have Dr. Kelly O, but not a lot of doctors really know how to address this particular stage of life. It's not necessarily that they don't want to, but oftentimes it just gets attributed to, well, that's just what happens when you get older, and it doesn't have to be. You don't have to succumb to it. No, not at all. So what's happening? Your estrogen and progesterone are starting to drop, and they used to help us regulate our weight, and they used to help us regulate our sleep, and they used to help us regulate our moods. But when they start to fluctuate first, as we're in our 40s, in that perimenopause phase, which can be about 10 years long of fluctuations and decline of those really key hormones, and testosterone too, we have a little of that. That fluctuation causes so much havoc in our body, in our brain health, our metabolic health. I definitely want to talk about that. Gets messed with. And for some women, it gets messed with so much that it can impact our liver detoxification processes and our ability to metabolize estrogen efficiently. Even the little bit we got might be causing havoc because progesterone has dropped so low. So that, in a nutshell, is what's going on that's causing all this havoc in your body. But what can you do? You can look to diet and nutrition. Obviously, your doctors can tell you about what your options are: medication, hormone replacement, all the things that they have at their disposal. And there is a lot. You just want to have a very deep and good conversation with your doctor to explore not just the benefits of all of those things, but the risks and how they apply to you. But what can you do? Well, you can work on improving your metabolic health. What is that? That's learning how to regulate your blood sugar, your diet. When you used to be able to eat anything and never gain a pound, I'm sorry. That's harder to do for a lot of women when we reach this. So we're kind of forced to kind of figure out what's going to spike my blood sugar and what's not. And I will tell you, if we focus on eating healthy proteins and healthy fats and crowd out the processed foods, the processed refined carbohydrates, the processed refined sugars, we're left with an anti-inflammatory diet. I love the foods that Dr. Kelly L just mentioned. All of those are anti-inflammatory. So we need to start eating anti-inflammatory, making sure we're getting enough fiber, keeping our blood sugar right here in the middle, just like Goldilocks, just right. We don't want it too high or low. And then when we do that, we're improving what's called this condition called insulin resistance, which makes it really hard to lose weight in this stage of life because it gets messed with. Our insulin sensitivity gets messed with by perimenopause and menopause. But if we start eating better, we can start to work on that. And when we start giving ourselves whole foods, our body thanks us by going, okay, I'm gonna get efficient for you. I'm gonna take what you're eating, I'm gonna process it, I'm gonna eliminate, I'm gonna let you metabolize it and get it out of your system. So our digestive system thanks you, our liver detoxification system thanks you, and you'll start to feel better. The weight will come off just by virtue of you just eating better. So that's like number one. Let's work with that. And it sounds like you already are on that journey with Dr. Kelly O. So that's wonderful. There are key nutrients, though, that you need to make sure you're getting and eating foods that have them, meaning eating those food sources that have them that become really important, like the omegas, your nuts and seeds. You got to make sure flaxseed, chia seed, you got to make sure you're getting that. So I could go on forever talking about this stuff, but we can solve a lot of the symptoms we're having, which are symptoms of a deeper problem. So what I was just discussing were the deeper issues going on and how to address the deeper issues. The byproduct of addressing those deeper issues are those symptoms start to dissipate, right? High cholesterol, metabolic health, heart issues become a thing. So we want to clean up our diet, eat anti-inflammatory. The emotional side, though, we often ignore because we're so focused on this other stuff that it can play on our emotional and our psychological health because we're depressed because we're gaining weight and because it seems like it's out of our control, right? So sometimes habits that weren't great for us start to perpetuate just because you're feeling down about what's happening. So I want to acknowledge that that happens. It happened to me, right? Nobody told me to order a pizza almost every other night at one point in my life before I knew better. But when we know better, we do better, thanks to Maya Angelou, right?
Absolutely.
So we want to address our emotional adjustments that are happening, which is why it becomes so important to fill our life with the things that bring us joy. Because when when we are experiencing joy and pleasure, guess what we're not experiencing? Anxiety and stress, and maybe even depression, because we're engaged in things that light us up. So it becomes really, really important to do that. There's also, when we're getting that diet cleaned up and we're starting to bring in the things that bring us some joy, we also want to just look at our life, do an inventory of what's going on in your life It might have been great a few years earlier when your kids were just getting out of college, hadn't yet graduated. Now they're gone, or they're older. They have their own jobs and maybe their own families. And you've been working where you've worked for several years and you've been in that 401k or saving up. And now you're in this stage of life where that notion that everybody else needs you, do they really? Or do you get to have some of yourself back? Right. And even that can be an adjustment where you were taking care of other people. That can be disconcerting when they don't need you in that way anymore. What they do need, though, is someone who is that they love, who is still living a vibrant life, even when it's separate and apart from what's going on in their lives. You did your job. They're wonderful, beautiful adults, humans, contributing to the world because you raised them. Now it's time to turn the attention back to yourself. What are the things that you like to do? What are the things that you put down that you want to pick up and now? Because you can, you have the capacity to do so. And when you're feeling better because you cleaned up your diet, this is the meat. I love working with people on these things. This is important. Changing your career. I changed my career. I left a very good, high-paying job because it no longer served, it was no longer benefiting me in the ways I needed to benefit. It was really messing with my health, my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health. It wasn't worth it. And I had the luxury to let me just do something else. That's what this stage affords you, is to being able to walk away and start something new. And that's exciting. It's like a second adolescence in some ways. You have a clean slate, a blank canvas, right? Longevity is the canvas that you get to draw on with colors of things that bring you joy and pleasure. And purpose is that guiding stroke. You're the painter. You get to paint that canvas with what you want in this stage. So I don't want you to miss it because you're suffering. Because we can nip that. We can nip that. You don't have to suffer.
And I love what you're saying there because I have watched several women go through the different changes. And to be honest, the changes actually started probably about age 35.
Mhm.
We talk about that and everybody's focused on eggs and egg quality. But these changes are starting to happen in your mid 30s and going all the way through 55, 60, depending on how long your, I guess, window is going to be. And when you talk about people that are not living pleasurable lives, like they're frustrated and they're frustrating the people that are around them, that is so significant. But we only have like 11 minutes left. And clapping because I want to talk about the intimacy.
Yeah, I know you do. I came with it. I came with it. Okay, so let's get into this part, right? Okay, so I want to talk about new ways, new dimensions of sexuality and intimacy in midlife, because it looks a little different than it did when you were in your 20s. And while we may want to sweep that around under the rug with our partners, it's noticeable because you notice it. And if you notice it, they notice it. So one of the key things that you want to really revisit, and especially if you're in a loving, trusting, safe relationship, you want to be able to open up the communication. And when you open up the communication and talk about these changes and talk about what you need now, as opposed to what used to work for you before, may not work for you now. And they just need an update, right? They need to understand, slow down, right? Sometimes that's all it takes is to say, slow down. You used to like it faster. Now maybe you need to tell them to slow down. But you know what? Communicating something as simple as slow down also communicates something else. It means I'm enjoying what you're doing. just slow down. So you're on the right track, just slow down. So it's not necessarily that you have to have a huge, long, sit on the couch and have a big, long conversation. It could be as simple as that. And not being afraid to say something like that, because your relationship is such where mutual vulnerability is happening in that relationship. I guarantee you, most men, in my personal research, also are going through some changes too that they don't want to talk about. So if
That's,
you,
that's
what's,
what we call that menopause. Like I've trademarked that menopause,
yes,
just like we are.
yes, they do. They go through it too. They have a fluctuation of their testosterone levels, right? And what they were used to before might not be quite the same either. And rather than being silent about it and maybe fostering some resentment for both of you, let's put it out in the open and talk about it. You love this person. So communication and connection, I mentioned first and foremost, because when we are vulnerable enough to communicate what isn't working for you and to communicate what might work for you or what would work for you, and them to be able to do the same, that's so huge to get past that hurdle, because now the door is open for exploration on, well, what are these new things, right? And it opens the door for more intimacy. You might feel more deeper intimacy because now you're talking about it, right? There's actual communication and the connection is deeper. So what
So
are some of the things? Oh yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to say, I hear you saying don't be afraid to be specific about what you want in the bedroom, outside the bedroom, because as we know, intimacy doesn't just start in the bedroom. It starts way before. It starts first thing in the morning
Yeah,
and
yeah.
goes throughout. But go ahead with your next
Yes,
couple.
yes. I was going to say some of the ways we can explore our sensuality at this stage in life might be less sexual, more sensual types of things, right? Sensual massage that focuses on the whole body and deriving pleasure from your whole body rather than just focusing on genital stimulation, for example. Mindfully based and body-based practices of breathing. Some call it tantra, but a way to get in alignment and breathe together and get into that union with your partner and be meditative about it is phenomenal and really pleasurable for some people. So you might want to explore tapping into touch in a different way because it brings you closer, it's intimate, and fosters that communication and connection.
I love
You
that. Forget
Mhm.
about the tantric methods as well. Mindfulness, meditation, where you can go in your mind with your partner. So we have a question.
Oh, good. Okay.
So, what natural supplements would you recommend for those who don't wish to slow down but speed up? We still have people that are transitioning relationships as well, right? So,
Yes.
first for either first marriage or marriage, first marriage later in their life, or they've gotten a divorce and so they're meeting new people. But so, number one, Dr. Kelly OMD says make sure you protect yourself. So, HIV, STDs are real. But as we go into that, what type of natural supplements do you recommend?
Yeah. So, fast or slow, however you like it, is really kind of based on communication, I would say, than on a supplement. There are lots of products out there that help you moisturize yourself. There are some that help with arousal. There are some that help with zinging up your libido. But ultimately, and this is somewhat of an opinion, but ultimately what's really going to do it is you working on you and how you can speed up yourself, and sometimes that starts in the brain, right? Some people need fantasy to be able to get to the place where, you know what I'm going to do? I've been thinking about it. Sometimes fantasy is where you need to go. Sometimes people just need to be spoken to in a certain way, and that's all you need, and you're ready, right? Get in touch with your five senses: sight, smell, taste, sound. There is so much stimulation in each of those. Someone dressed a certain way, you dressed a certain way, or your partner dressed a certain way, your partner smelling a certain way, you smelling a certain way, you being spoken to in a certain kind of voice with words that are of a certain nature. Tap into those five senses, because I guarantee you that will be much more beneficial than a supplement. I'm sure there's a ingredient out there but I don't have it, right? Because again, that's something external to yourself to fix or to help. And we want to focus on generating that internally, improve, because you used to have it, right? We want to bring it back, and you can through all of these other ways. And also to embody the way you want to feel and how fast you want to go by using tools. And in my sex and relationship and intimacy coaching, it's experiential, and I have lots of tools, and I work with couples as well as individuals to kind of figure out what those things are, because you have them and they're just might not being accessed right now. But once they are, and your partner knows your rhythm because you've communicated it, and whatever else is necessary to make it happen, it can happen.
I would just add the basic supplements that we need to have is we need to make sure that we have all the vitamins and nutrients that we're supposed to have. So, you know, the vitamin D, the omega, the DHEA. So in your multivitamin, pretty much you have most of the supplements that you need for that. But if you're asking about specific supplements to encourage sexual activity, I mean, you know, you hear about the maca, and there's several different ones that people have stated encourage sexual activity, and I can get that information to you. Granted, a lot of the supplements are definitely not FDA approved, and ashwagandha is another one that makes me think of that as well. But they're not FDA approved. But people that practice naturopathic medicine or the practice of Eastern medicine definitely have alternative ways rather than our, you know, American way of doing things. But that being said, your basic functions of life come from us doing what we call the Viva Life 5. And we've talked about that before. So our nutrition, as well as the vitamins and nutrients that we need to get from our foods and what we drink as far as our water, definitely have many, if not most of everything that we need. We just need to be consistent in what we're doing. We do have another question. All of these changes that you mentioned started when I was 45. Do I need to have my hormone levels checked? Do you want me to take that one, or you want to take that one?
I do. It certainly wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Kelly.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, the more I get deeper into this experience of past 45, the more I realize, and I go back and I listen to like all the thousands of the patients that I've taken care of. And those hormones, what'll happen is you'll get your hormones checked and they'll just be a little bit low, or they'll be right in the range. Well, the range is so far, but really your body will tell you what it needs, right? So just like when you are low on iron, your body tells you what you need. You start eating things that are iron-rich foods. Your body tells you what you need. You drop significant amount of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone about 5 to 10 years prior to you going into full menopause, which is when you stop having a period for a year. So all of those levels are going down. But I do recommend, if your primary care will allow you to do that, to go ahead and check that. But I will also say that drlarissa.com, she definitely goes into menopause care, as well as there's a company called MIDI, MIDI.com, that helps you with menopause care. And soon I will be right on that track with y'all. So let's see, we are right at 8 o'clock. And typically, we start on time, we end on time. So we are very grateful for what you have given us today, Carla. Do you want to drop your information into the chat or let us know how to get in touch with you so that if we want to do coaching with you, whether that is spiritual, physical, you mentioned individual, couple, sexual, please let us know how we can do that. info@beingwellaware.com. We love that. Thank you. And on social media. So all the social media platforms are the same as your website, correct?
Yes, they are. And here's the link to see all of the types of coaching that I do. And I just so happen to be launching a membership tomorrow. So I'm excited about that. That covers the whole and wise woman, where we dig into all of these things. But I also do one-on-one coaching. All of that is there. Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to speak to the Viva Lifers. This has been really wonderful.
Absolutely. And we're so grateful for having you here. And everybody, as you know, I'm Dr. Kelly OMD, your board certified OBGYN and health and wellness executive. So very excited to have you here. You can follow me on @drkellyomd.com and on Instagram, same thing, as well as Viva Life Health Hub. Thank you so much for being here with us. And don't forget to do what? Viva Life. All right. Thank you for being a part of the Viva Life experience. I'm Dr. Kelly OMD, board certified OBGYN and healthcare executive. If you like what you heard, then please go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. The reason why is because we are trying to educate, encourage, and inspire 1 million people to live their healthiest and wealthiest life. And this is what we're bringing you. We're bringing you educational videos. We're bringing you podcasts. We are bringing you webinars with subject matter experts, including myself, about the topics that affect you the most. So go ahead, like, subscribe, and share. We are everywhere. Have a wonderful day. Viva Life.